Maxie Jones left General Hospital on Monday, August 25, for coma care in Boston, while Jason Morgan had a burner phone and a promise for Britt Westbourne. At the Quartermaine stables, Cody Bell scrambled to explain the Ava Jerome situation to Molly Lansing Davis, insisting he was doing it for her. Cody mentioned that Christina Corinthos Davis paid him to intervene between Ava and Rick Lansing, so Ava stormed away, intending to deal with Cody later. Molly was unimpressed with Cody's answer and stomped off as well. Christina disclosed to Rick at Alexis Davis's house that she was aware of the blackmail, resulting in a heated argument regarding the cut brakes, the vehicle crash, and the strain Alexis was under. Rick requested Christina be imprisoned, but Christina shot out at him for constantly causing problems in her relationship with Molly. Christina took up a letter opener and appeared to be about to use it on Rick, but she eventually returned it on the table. When Ava walked in, she chastised Christina for playing her and Rick against each other. Rick eventually stated that the blackmail was done, shocking Ava by revealing that he had cleared out all of the accounts, including her hidden one. Rick also stated that he had purchased $10 million in treasury bonds, so he would have laundered money in a month and left Ava with nothing. In a fit of wrath, Ava snatched a bauble off the table and struck Rick with it, causing him to collapse with a gash on the back of his head. Christina appeared astonished by what Ava had just done. Alexis met Drew Kane at the Metro Court Grill and was upset when she received a restraining order. Drew informed Alexis that she could not come within 500 feet of Scout Quartermaine. Alexis also found that Molly, Christina, Danny Morgan, and even Rocco Falconeri were served with restraining orders. Drew made it clear that Scout would not be able to see Alexis until she was 18, assuming she even remembered who Alexis was by then. Alexis responded that she would pretend Drew didn't exist and that if Scout inquired about him, she would lie and claim he was a good man. Alexis informed Molly that Drew would not be present to prove her incorrect, so she seemed anxious when she entered and discovered her mother making threats. Nearby, Martin Gray kept Laura Collins up to date on all of the Stella Henry drama and how he'd made an enemy of Drew. Laura and Martin saw Alexis threaten Drew nearby, but they chuckled and pretended they hadn't heard anything. At the hospital, Lucas Jones informed Damian Spinelli, Felicia Scorpio, and Max Scorpio that Maxie had fallen into a coma and that GH was no longer the best location for her. Lucas knew Mass General in Boston was at the forefront of coma care because he had previously worked there. Lucas was convinced that Mass General would handle Maxie's condition far better than they could at GH. Spinelli enjoyed a tender moment with Maxie and pushed her to return home to him with the children. Brooklyn Quartermaine, Lulu Spencer, Cody, Georgie Spinelli, and James West all came to say their goodbyes. James handed over Nathan West's badge, which Maxie had given him when he shattered his arm. Now James wanted Maxie to have it while she recovered, so Lucas promised to watch over it as Maxie was carried into the elevator. Britt wondered why Jason was still at the Five Poppies resort, but he hadn't yet found what he was looking for. Britt chastised Jason for his date with the Euro trash and pretended she didn't recognize Greta's name. Jason said they were merely looking for information from one another. Despite Jason's offer to take Britt any place she wanted, she became emotional about him reminding her of home and once again asked him to go. Britt and Jason appeared to be on the verge of kissing, but they pulled back before they did. Jason finally agreed to attend on the condition that Britt carry a burner phone and call him if she needed assistance. After Jason promised Britt that he would show there if she called, she yelled that he shouldn't tell Carly Spencer and walked out the door. According to General Hospital teasers, Britt's narrative will continue to take unexpected turns, so stay tuned. Molly is stunned when she sees a shirtless Cody kissing Ava in the Quartermaine stables. She rushes out, but he begs her to halt, saying he is doing this for her. Cody finally tells the truth. Cody puts on a shirt and says he was never interested in Ava, revealing that he was paid to be with her. Molly is outraged and calls him a gigolo, but Ava assures her that she will not pay Cody for sex. Cody explains that Christina paid him to take Ava away from Rick. Cody apologizes to Ava, but she says she will deal with him later and storms out. Cody confesses to Molly that this was all Christina's idea, and in the end, he took Rick away from Ava, which was exactly what she wanted. Molly warns him not to do her any more favors and goes away. Christina also reveals the truth. Rick visits Alexis to discuss business, but she is not there. Christina claims his business is truly with her, as she is aware that he is blackmailing her mother for the error she made in cutting his brake lines. Rick lashes out at her, claiming it was not a simple mistake. It was attempted murder, and she should be in prison. Christina understands what she did was bad, and she snapped after going through so much hardship over the last year. Rick informs Molly that she has lost both a child and a sibling. Rick yells and berates Christina. She turns her back on him and takes the letter opener sitting on the desk, clutching it in rage. Christina puts it back down and tells Rick that all he does is pit her and Molly against each other, and she knows Molly would be devastated if she learned not only that she nearly killed him, but also that he is blackmailing their mother. Ava enters and informs Rick that they have both been tricked by Christina, who has been attempting to pit them against each other. As Ava and Christina dispute, Rick informs them that the blackmail game is ended. Was it a death threat? Alexis and Drew meet at the Port Charles Grill. She hopes they can find a way ahead to help Scout. A woman arrives and presents Alexis with papers. She is surprised to find that the congressman has sought a restraining order against her. Drew claims Danny, Rocco, Christina, and Molly are all being served as well. He is aware that she intends to seek custody of Scout and take his daughter away from him. Martin and Laura are eating supper across the room, and he reveals he has turned Drew against him. He informs her that Drew has accused Stella with insurance fraud, all because he despises Curtis. Laura feels bad for Scout being stuck with that man. Martina informs his sister that he and Drew have part ways. She is proud of him, but he fears he will have to continue freeloading at her apartment for a while longer. Martin notices the drama playing out between Alexis and Drew across the room. He reminds his sister that she must defeat Ezra in this election because otherwise Drew's influence will be unfettered. Drew informs Alexis that Sam wanted Danny to accompany him and Scout, as indicated in her will. Alexis claims this was before she knew Jason was alive. Drew lashes out, saying Danny is much like his violent father. Alexis yells at him to shut up, refusing to allow him blame his horrible behavior on a 15-year-old who misses his sister. Molly shows up to see her mother. Alexis and Drew rage out at each other, and Drew tells Scout that she will never see Alexis again until she is 18, assuming the girl remembers her by then. Alexis threatens Drew that once she's finished with him, it'll be as if he never existed. She informs him that if Scout asks about him, she will tell her that he was a good man, but he will not be present to prove her wrong. Lucas breaks the bad news to Maxie's family at the hospital. Lucas informs Maxie's loved ones that she is in a coma and that this is not the best place for her anymore. Lucas claims his former hospital in Boston, Mass General, is at the forefront of treating coma patients, and he has arranged for Maxie to be sent there. Spinelli begs Mac and Felicia to not send Maxie away. Felicia inquires about Lucas's trust in the doctors and whether Maxie will receive the finest possible treatment. Lucas claims that Mass General will provide her with the best care available. Can Brooklyn and Lulu keep the peace? Brooklyn informs Lulu that Felicia has called and Lucas is taking Maxie to a special hospital in Boston. She wants them to bring the children to say goodbye. Lulu immediately contacts Cody, who had just been walked out on by Molly, and tells him he needs to hurry to GH because Maxie and his family need him. Back at the hospital, Spinelli sits with Maxie and tells her that having a second opportunity with her and the kids has been the happiest time of his life, and he needs her to struggle to wake up and return home. Lulu, Brooklyn, the children, and Cody arrive. Spinelli brings Georgie to meet her mother, while Cody comforts James. Lulu and Brooklyn then ask Lucas if they can see her, to which he says yes, as long as they don't fight. They promise. The women enter to see Maxie together. Brooklyn informs their buddy that she accomplished it, and they are now together, with Lulu adding that only she could have made this happen. They advise her to rest and not to worry, they'll look after the children and Spinelli. When it's James' turn to see his mother, he definitely feels apprehensive. Cody proposes they go together, claiming he is a little nervous to see her. Mac joins them inside. Mac tells Maxie that he knows she will overcome this and that he loves her. He gives her a kiss on the forehead. After James fractured his arm, his mother gave him his father's police badge to help him recuperate. Now he's giving it to her to aid her. He tells her he loves her. Can Jason get through to Britt? Britt shows up at Jason's room at the Five Poppies. She tells him to leave, but he wants to know what she's doing here. Britt calls him out for flirting with Greta, a piece of your trash. Jason reveals that he was simply working for Greta, who plainly wanted information about him, and that he had already informed her that the WSB was interested in this site. He urges Britt to go with him, promising to take her any place she wants. She cries, saying she can't tolerate looking at him because it hurts and reminds her of home. She instructs him to leave and forget her. He refuses, and they approach one another, close enough to kiss. In the final moments of the show, Lucas prepares Maxie to be taken to Boston. Felicia assures her daughter that she is confident she will see her awake and alert soon. Everyone's in tears. In Croatia, Jason informs Britt that he will depart on one condition and hands her a burner phone. He says she can phone him and he'll show up. She urges he not inform Carly and walks away in tears. Molly informs her mother that she should leave the restaurant and get some fresh air. Alexis assures Drew that this is not over, but he swears it is. Martin informs Laura that Alexis should have been more discreet, as threatening Drew in public is risky. Laura claims she didn't hear anything, and Martin laughs. Molly informs Drew that Sam will despise him for doing this, and Scout would hate him as well. He refuses to hear it and walks away. Rick informs Ava at Alexis' house that her spending habits cannot last forever. He discloses that all of the accounts are not only closed, but also empty, including the one she had been surreptitiously funneling money into. Ava demands Rick return her money, but he says he used it to buy $10 million in treasury bonds, which he cannot touch. In 30 days, he'll collect the clean and laundered money and deposit it all into his account. Ava is furious at his betrayal, grabs a marble decorative globe, and whacks Rick over the head. Christina is taken aback as he collapses. Ava holds the globe, which is soaked in Rick's blood. Maxie was aware that leaving Port Charles would be difficult, but something in her heart told her she had no option. The constant beeping of devices and the repeated chats with professionals had exhausted her. Nathan's absence weighed severely on her, but the thought of losing another person she loved was terrible. When she heard about the Boston Coma Care Clinic, with its advanced treatments and reputation for bringing the seemingly impossible back into the light, she felt she had to take the risk. It was no longer simply about hope, it was about survival, about giving someone she cared about a fair shot of waking up. So Maxie packed her life in quiet, buried her anguish, and made a decision no one could persuade her of. Boston contained answers, and even if it meant leaving her children behind for a while, she assured herself that they would understand eventually. However, her departure left a silent storm simmering in Port Charles. Spinelli had attempted to persuade her to stay, reminding her of everything she had built here, acquaintances, a business, and family ties, but Maxie had become immune to her appeals. She needed to feel as if she was doing something, anything, to alter the impossible. So, on a bleak Wednesday morning, she kissed her kids goodbye, hugged Georgie a bit longer than she planned, and promised to call every night. Her heart pained, but determination overcame the fear in her chest. Boston was waiting, and Maxie needed to trust in the miracle that might happen. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of town, Jason Morgan worked quietly in the shadows, avoiding most of the individuals who had once meant everything to him. Since his return to Port Charles, he'd been caught up in a tornado of friendships, betrayals, and secrets, but one name stood out above the others. Britt. The remorse he felt for not saving her years ago weighed heavily on his shoulders, and every time someone spoke her name, he felt a profound aching in his chest. That guilt had been gnawing at him, forcing him into places he shouldn't go, looking through things he shouldn't touch, and reaching out to people he shouldn't trust. The burner phone in his palm was more than just a phone, it was a lifeline, a direct connection to something larger than anybody around him could comprehend. On the surface, Britt was gone, but Jason wasn't confident her narrative had finished as everyone expected. He had discovered snippets of encrypted conversations, whispers from old WSB acquaintances, and inexplicable discrepancies in medical records. Nothing adds up. Jason was not going to let go of the possibility that she was still alive. He waited till nightfall to make his first call using the burner phone. He didn't save the number anyplace, he remembered it, just like he did escape routes and safe house codes. When the call went through, a garbled voice answered, and Jason paused for a split second before speaking. "I need information on Project Phoenix," he continued, his voice firm. There was stillness on the other end, followed by the faint sound of typing. The speaker asked, "Who told you about that?" Jason did not respond. He didn't have to. This wasn't something he could involve Sunny in, not yet. Too many moving pieces, too many potential betrayals hiding beneath the surface. Jason had learned long ago that the fewer people who knew, the safer everyone would be. But Jocelyn had been poking around Dalton's phone recently, and Jason suspected she might have stumbled across something connected. He couldn't let her get pulled deeper into this mess, not when she was already carrying so much. Back at the hospital, Spinelli ran into Elizabeth, who could see the worry etched across his face. He finally confessed where Maxie was going, and Liz understood immediately. She'd seen that same desperation in parents and loved ones for years. But when she asked if Maxie knew about Jason's secretive movements, Spinelli shook his head. Maxie didn't know. Nobody did. Jason had become a ghost in his own life, operating from the edges, making calculated moves while pretending to stay neutral. By the following week, whispers started circulating around Port Charles about the burner phone, though no one could trace its origin. Dante began piecing together fragments of overheard conversations and cryptic WSB references, quietly putting together a theory that Jason was chasing something, or someone, tied to Britt. The name Project Phoenix popped up again in a report Dante intercepted, buried inside a heavily redacted file, and that only deepened his suspicion. When he confronted Jason about it, Jason denied everything, his poker face unshaken. But Dante knew better than to believe him. At the same time, Sunny began to notice shifts in Jason's behavior, the long absences, the missed meetings, the unexplained calls at odd hours. Sunny hated being left in the dark, especially when it involved something Jason couldn't even trust him with. But deep down, Sunny also knew Jason wouldn't risk everything unless the stakes were unthinkably high. He suspected Britt's name was at the center of it, though he didn't have proof. That gnawed at him. Meanwhile, in Boston, Maxie checked into the care center, where sterile white walls and hushed voices became her new reality. The specialists there were confident but cautious, reminding her there were no guarantees. Still, Maxie clung to hope like a lifeline, throwing herself into every briefing and asking endless questions about treatments, recovery timelines, and emerging experimental therapies. Her nights were restless, haunted by thoughts of what she'd left behind, her children, her friends, the quiet chaos of Port Charles, but she believed she was where she needed to be. One evening, Maxie called Spinelli, her voice cracking as she admitted she felt alone despite the constant activity around her. Spinelli tried to reassure her, promising to visit soon and updating her on everything happening back home, though he carefully left out Jason's secret investigation. Maxie didn't need the distraction, not now. But deep down, Spinelli worried she would eventually find out, and when she did, the fallout could be massive. Jason, meanwhile, continued to spiral deeper into his search for the truth. Each encrypted message he unlocked, each lead he followed, pulled him further into a dangerous web of secrets. The burner phone became his constant companion, buzzing late into the night with new coordinates, contact codes, and cryptic warnings. He pieced together a trail that led him to a remote clinic overseas, one rumored to specialize in off-the-books recoveries for high-profile patients. The deeper he dug, the clearer it became that someone had worked hard to erase Britt's trail, which only made Jason more certain she was alive. But with each step forward, the danger closed in. Unmarked SUVs were spotted trailing him outside the safe house he'd been using, and an unfamiliar number pinged his burner phone with a single chilling message: "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." Jason ignored it. He had never been the kind of man to back down when the people he loved were on the line, and this time was no different. Back in Port Charles, Dante's investigation heated up as he secretly teamed with Anna Devane, suspecting WSB ties in Jason's activities. Anna, who still carried her own guilt over Britt's death, found herself torn between helping Jason and following protocol. If Britt really was alive, this changed everything, but the question remained: who had faked her death, and why? As Maxie settled into her new life in Boston, unaware of the storm brewing back home, Jason's mission intensified. Every lead he uncovered brought him closer to the truth, and closer to danger. Someone powerful was protecting secrets tied to Britt, and Jason knew that crossing them would put everyone he loved at risk. But he couldn't stop, not now. The burner phone buzzed again late one night. Jason stared at the screen, his jaw tightening as he read the latest message: "We have proof she's alive. Meet me. Alone." And just like that, Jason knew his entire world was about to change. The moment the news spread through Port Charles, the mood shifted into something somber and unsettling. Maxie's health had been fragile for weeks, and though everyone had hoped for a miracle, reality was finally sinking in. Her loved ones gathered around her, trying to mask their pain, trying to be strong for her even though their hearts were breaking. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of medical machines and the occasional muffled sobs that slipped through from those who couldn't hold back any longer. Spinelli sat closest to her bedside, his hand wrapped gently around hers, whispering words she could barely hear. His voice trembled as he told her stories about Georgie, about the life they once dreamed of, and about all the moments he wished they still had ahead of them. He wasn't ready to let go, and yet, deep down, he knew he might not have a choice. Lulu stood in the corner with her arms wrapped around herself, her eyes swollen from crying, and Brooklyn moved quietly from person to person, comforting them the way Maxie had comforted her so many times before. Felicia tried to stay strong, but every time she looked at her daughter, her composure cracked. She kept brushing Maxie's hair gently, almost like she was afraid that if she stopped touching her, she'd lose her for good. Max stood behind Felicia, a steady presence, but his jaw was clenched tightly, and his silence spoke louder than any words ever could. They all knew time was slipping away, and each second felt heavier than the last. Outside in the hallway, chaos was brewing. Drew paced back and forth, tense and on edge, his phone buzzing every few minutes with calls he ignored. He was frustrated, not just with the situation but with everything that had been piling up around him. Alexis approached him, her expression stern, her eyes filled with a kind of sharp determination that warned him she was past being patient. She didn't bother softening her tone when she spoke. She accused him of crossing lines he shouldn't have crossed, of manipulating situations behind the scenes in ways that were dangerous not just for him but for everyone around him. Drew tried to defend himself, insisting that everything he was doing was to protect the people he cared about, but Alexis wasn't buying it. Her voice rose slightly, her words cutting deeper with each passing second. She warned him that if he didn't back off, if he didn't stop playing games with powerful enemies, she would make sure the truth came out, even if it destroyed him in the process. Her threat shook Drew, but he masked it with a cold stare, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing his fear. He didn't back down, though. Instead, he told her she had no idea how far things had already gone, and that stepping in now would only make everything worse. But Alexis wasn't swayed. She had spent too long watching people she cared about get dragged into dangerous schemes, and she wasn't going to let it happen again, not if she could stop it. Meanwhile, across town, another storm was exploding. Ava had reached her breaking point. She'd been pushed, manipulated, and cornered for far too long, and Rick Lansing had made the mistake of thinking she wouldn't fight back. Their confrontation started as a heated argument in his office, but it escalated quickly into something darker. Rick, smug and self-assured, tried to use his usual charm and threats to control the situation, but Ava wasn't having it. She'd been underestimated too many times, and tonight, she wasn't going to be the one left broken. Their shouting echoed through the hall as tempers flared, each accusation sharper than the last. Rick accused Ava of sabotaging his deals and meddling in affairs she didn't understand, but Ava fired back with her own truths, secrets he thought she didn't know, leverage he thought he had over her that suddenly crumbled in an instant. Rick lunged toward her, trying to intimidate her into silence, but Ava's fury boiled over. Without thinking, she grabbed the nearest object, a heavy glass paperweight from his desk, and swung. The sound of it connecting with Rick's head was sickeningly sharp, and for a moment, silence filled the room. Rick staggered, shock written all over his face, before collapsing to the ground. Ava stood there, breathing hard, her hands trembling but her expression unflinching. She didn't check to see if he was unconscious or worse. Instead, she backed away, her heart pounding in her chest, knowing there was no going back now. Everything had changed. She grabbed her bag, wiped the sweat from her forehead, and slipped out the side door, her mind racing with what this meant for her future. Back at the hospital, Maxie stirred slightly, her eyelids fluttering open for just a brief moment. Spinelli leaned closer, whispering her name, and she smiled faintly, her voice barely a whisper as she told him not to cry. She told him to be strong for Georgie, for their daughter, and for everyone she loved. Her words carried the weight of someone who knew her time was short, but she spoke them with grace and quiet courage. Around the room, everyone seemed to freeze, holding on to that fragile moment like it was a lifeline. Outside Maxie's room, Alexis and Drew's argument had ended in silence, but neither one had truly backed down. Drew walked away first, jaw set, fists clenched, the anger in his chest simmering dangerously. Alexis stood there, watching him go, already knowing this wasn't over. Whatever Drew was involved in had layers she hadn't uncovered yet, and she wasn't going to stop digging until she got to the truth. Meanwhile, Ava raced across town, her adrenaline still pumping as she tried to figure out her next move. She knew Rick wouldn't let this go, assuming he was still conscious, and even if he did, there were witnesses, cameras, and 1,000 other loose ends she hadn't considered. But Ava wasn't one to crumble under pressure. If anything, she thrived in chaos. She pulled her car into a dark alley, took a deep breath, and began making phone calls. There were people she could rely on, people who owed her favors, people who had just as much to lose as she did. She wasn't going down without a fight. Hours passed, and the night in Port Charles grew heavier with secrets and shifting alliances. Maxie's condition remained fragile, the tension between Drew and Alexis simmered beneath the surface, and Ava's desperate act threatened to ignite a chain reaction that could upend everything. Each of them carried their own battles, but somehow, all the threads were tangled together in ways none of them could see yet. By morning, nothing would be the same. Maxie's loved ones would wake with the weight of uncertainty pressing down on them, Alexis would prepare her next move against Drew, and Ava would find herself deeper in trouble than she'd ever imagined. Port Charles had seen plenty of chaos before, but this was just the beginning of something darker, something far more dangerous than anyone realized. And as the sun began to rise, the shadows over the city only seemed to stretch longer, wrapping everyone in a storm they couldn't escape.